have an outtake blooper reel.
Hello, everyone. I'm D.Lisa West. I'm a dream doula.
I am Christina Spataro. I'm a psychotherapist and relationship coach. And you may have heard a slight snippet of me saying we have to have a blooper reel because we just had a moment and it was hilarious.
We have so many bloopers, but most of the time I just leave them in. And then the other day I saw something that said, oh my goodness, you can click here and have artificial intelligence take all the ahs and ums and spaces out of your Vimeo video. So I'm like, all right, upload a video. And then I was like, wait, that video is still exactly 33 minutes long. What happened? Well, I didn't pay for the AI editing. Editing. So I didn't have it edit it. But let's talk about how you know what's real and how you know what's not real in the age of artificial intelligence. Because I heard a story the other day where these people were talking on a Zoom with, I can't remember what country or what official, but a government official was on a Zoom having a conversation with them. And somehow the Zoom link got broken. So they called back to the mayor's office of this town, of this person we're talking to. And they were told that that person was not on a Zoom. And what were they talking about?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So how, I mean, I've always wondered, like, how do we know what's real? Because I can remember ads and jingles from my childhood that made me want to buy a certain thing, eat a certain thing, smoke a certain cigarette. Virginia Slims, when I was in 1970s, Virginia Slims were cigarettes designed for women. They were dainty and they marketed them to women as the woman's cigarette when you could still market cigarettes. And that was at the time where, you know, more doctors smoke Pall Malls than any other cigarette. I was like, doctors were advertising cigarettes as a way to.
It was a different time.
And now we're like, don't smoke, you're gonna die. Wow. So what was real in the 1960s and considered really cool to do is, no, we don't smoke cigarettes. And how are our children and our grandchildren going to ever know what's real if artificial intelligence can do such a deep fake that you think you're talking to someone and they look like that person and they talk like that person, but they're an AI generated hologram? I don't even know how they did that.
I mean, honestly, this is, since the whole AI ChatGPT and all this thing came out, this has actually been worrying me because you already have people that tend to believe conspiracy theories and all this other stuff. And before, where we could rely maybe on the accuracy of a picture or a statement or a video, and if you have the ability to edit it so flawlessly, even better than they can now. Like I remember when the Hawaii fires happened, there was a fake photo that was put that I was reading about it, how they had taken, I want to say, a fire from an Ohio oil thing or something, and they had manipulated the photo to make it look like some laser was coming from the sky. And then there was a photo circulating trying to make it sound like this is what happened in Hawaii and this is what was causing fires. It was pure fake. But they were able to discern that it wasn't fake. I mean, it was fake because the guy that actually took the original photo and stuff, he let people know, hey, I took this original photo. This thing's fake. This is not mine. So my concern is what happens when we can no longer discern this? How do we discern what's real and what's not? That is the big question. I was watching a YouTube and this guy was talking about that very question. Like, you know, in this world of people just want to get the story out, they don't always fact check, right? They're like, oh, I heard this. And before you know it, it's on Twitter, on X, it's on Facebook, and it's all over the place, and it went viral. And then it turns out it's not true. But because it went viral, who's going to believe the retraction? Um, and he was saying part of how we can discern is look at where it's coming from. And how do we know it's coming from there? Check that it actually came from where they say it's coming from. And then don't jump on it right away until you can gather more evidence of its validity.
Yeah, because back in the day when we had cameras that had film,
Mm-hmm.
you printed out a picture or you went to
Mm-hmm.
the photo place and you got a picture and it was what it was. You took a picture
Right.
of it. Or
Right.
you could go into a dark room and manipulate the picture by adding several different images together. Now you can do it on your computer or your
Yes.
phone. And
Yes.
how do you know what's real? We used to think if it's a picture, it's real.
Exactly.
Now, I don't think young people think pictures are real.
Mm-hmm.
They think that probably has been manipulated, at least enhanced for better color,
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
cropped, or maybe my face is put on someone else's body, or
Right.
oh, there's actually a class that happened maybe 5, 6 years ago. They started doing a class at the University of Washington
Mm-hmm.
called Calling Bullshit,
Oh, interesting.
Reasoning in a Digital World. And the professor who taught it would say, here's some statistics. Is it true? And then he would ask the class, I think in class you get to yell bullshit or true. And I will put in the show notes the syllabus for this class because
Wow. That
it
is
is
really
ongoing. It's 3 credits. It's called Info 270 at the University of Washington. And I do not know if they open this up to the public to take or if you have to be a matriculated student. But how do you? I mean,
how do you
week
call?
one, what is bullshit? Concepts
Yes.
and categories like art, science, the moral imperative of,
Right.
and then week two, how do you know truth? How do you
Wow.
spell bullshit? Like dimensions, checking plausibility. How do you get analysis, forensic analysis? And then there there are, yeah, week three, week four, week five, whatever. How do you get fooled? In other words,
Mm.
how do we get fooled in the world? Because we can each probably think of a time where something that
Mhm.
wasn't true
Mhm.
was given to us as true, and we believed it just implicitly.
Exactly.
For me, I will share that when I was a deckhand on charter boats and we caught salmon, my job was to rig all the poles, cut all the
Mhm.
bait, scoop up the salmon in a net, and at the end of the day, clean the salmon. And one day
Mhm.
I was saying to the skipper, wow, some of these salmon have yellow poop and some of them have green poop. I wonder what they're eating. And he said to me, plain face, the salmon from the south they have yellow poop, and the salmon from the north have green poop. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. South, warm, yellow, north, green, cold. Okay, I remembered that. And later, maybe a year or two later, I was explaining to one of the fishermen that you can tell where the salmon are from because if they're from the south, they have yellow poop, and if they're from the north, they have green poop. And the skipper said to me, that's bullshit. Where did you hear that? And I said, you told me. You told me. What do you
Yes.
mean? He goes, I never said that. So then
Ah,
suddenly I'm thinking, did he not tell me that? Or did I remember it wrong? No, he told me that. But obviously it was a joke and I thought it was true
right. And
because
I totally, especially in my younger years, yes, I tended to believe people. So if somebody said something with a straight face, I would believe them.
sure,
I
especially
totally
if
would.
they're older.
Of course. So, and that, and again, some people think, oh, that's harmless joke. But the thing is, taken to another level. Now we have our representatives lying to us. We have people in authority lying to us. So, what does that mean now for us in terms of trust, in terms of safety, in terms of how we discern truth from fiction?
Well, and I will postulate, is that the right word? That
I think
people
so.
in authority have been lying to the masses since the beginning of time
Oh, absolutely.
to control
Absolutely.
to
Yes.
control the people. So you don't want
Yes.
people coming in to just like grab everything from you and run away willy-nilly. You want them to be out there working. So the whole world is designed on believing things that may or may not be true.
Ah. I do agree with you that they have been lying since the beginning of time for power and control. 100%. Because why people lie? They do it for manipulation, power, control. But the problem is, now when you can have technology backing up your lie, or it used to the idea that the old refrain, I think it was Goebbels who said it, a lie repeated often enough is believed. So the problem is now we have this big megaphone with social media where you can magnify this lie to such a degree so quickly that it can spread and be believed when it's an full-faced lie.
Right. And earlier, before we started recording, I was talking about listening to Tim Ferris on his podcast and listening
Mm-hmm.
to a fellow named Robbins. Robbins. Apollo Robbins. He's an
Mm-hmm.
illusionist. And his interview with Tim Ferris was so fascinating because, first of all, he talks about stealing things. And then
Mm-hmm.
he goes into professionally stealing things from people on stage, where he's like, where's your wallet? And he steals their watch, or where's
Mm-hmm.
this or that. And so the concept he was sharing with Tim was this: we have the ability to control how other people's attention goes. So
Mm.
when he was stealing things from people,
Right.
he found a way to get into their personal space without them trying to push him away and without them really noticing what he was doing while he had their attention on something else. Like they're thinking about their wallet, he's stealing
Mm-hmm.
the watch. They're thinking about this or that, he's stealing their ring. I don't know how he can do these things, but he's very practiced. And he talked about there's 4 levels of attention, which I never really considered, but there's a narrow focused attention exterior and a wide
Mm-hmm.
focused attention exterior, and the same interior. So if you're interiorly focused on something, you're not paying attention to the exterior. And that's,
Mm.
he would ask someone a question which would make them think about something. They'd go inside and ponder the question. And while they were pondering the question, he was lifting their watch.
Wow.
And so
That
that's
is,
also how we can manipulate what people think is true.
oh, but what you're saying is so true because think about it. When we have people who lie to the public and stuff like that, what are they trying to distract us from? So by lying or by making you think of this, you're not paying attention to that.
Exactly.
So maybe part of your discernment can come from when you're being told something and you want to know if it's true, or you're being shown something, you want to know if it's true, ask the question, is this in trying to inform me or is this trying to distract me?
Right. And then don't you also know, somehow you know inside yourself
Mm-hmm.
if something's true or not. Even if you're believing that it's true, it feels wrong inside.
Yeah.
There's like a disconnect inside your body that feels a little bit like, maybe for me it's like in the heart space or the stomach space.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
It's true. Listen to that instinct. But the danger in that is that a lot of times what people do, especially if they're manipulating, they actually will kind of try to say lie about something in such a way that it actually is reinforcing a belief you have.
Oh, so they're
So you,
lying into your already
yes,
assumption belief system.
yes. So you have to be very careful with that because, yeah, we've been told to trust our gut and absolutely trust your gut. But again, you have to be careful because if people are trying to manipulate you, they will lie into your belief. So they'll kind of say, they might give you just a kernel of it seems true because it dies just enough into your belief system that you actually believe it.
Well, I can think of a couple of things. Wow, one of them just flew out of my brain. I can think of some women that I know who've
Mhm.
been tricked by con men.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I remember being, and I won't share the story from someone else because it's her own personal story. But let me just say,
Sure.
she was a smart woman, and she
Mhm.
believed this guy loved her, and he took
Mhm.
all of her money. She thought she was investing it, but anyway, long story. Turns out he was a serial liar. So
Mhm.
how can someone be a con man and be so convincing? I met a con man. He was my very first real estate client. He made 7 offers on 7 different houses,
Mhm.
and he said he would wire the earnest money soon. And he gave me a card from a company that he scribbled out a name and
Mhm.
wrote his name in and said, I don't have my cards yet. I just bought this company. He told me he owned a Learjet and a Bertram yacht. And he drove up in this really funky car with like Bondo
Mm.
on it and patches of the wrong color paint. He and I thought, okay, well, maybe it's right. Maybe he's really a guy that just bought a company and he's borrowing his friend's car. Maybe he has a yacht and a boat. I introduced him to the dock master so he
Mhm.
could see how much it would cost to put his boat there.
Mhm.
Showed him where the landing strip was, and not for a Learjet, but in the next town
Mhm.
he could land it there. And I spent the entire day with him. Lunch, I bought him lunch and dinner, and I found him a place to stay in. And by the end of the evening, he was. I used to play the drums with the Rolling Stones before they got their new drummer. I'm like, yeah, really? Oh, it's my
Mm.
birthday tomorrow. I'm like, really?
Mm.
And when I went to meet him in the morning and bring him his birthday cake, he was gone. He had gone home early. And he never sent any of the money in a wire to the 7 houses that he made offers on. But about a week later, his parole officer called and they said this, you didn't give him any money, did you? And we said, well, he didn't give us any money, so no. And they're like, listen, this guy's on parole from Tennessee, he for bank fraud.
Oh
And what
my
he's
God.
been doing in Seattle is he's been buying these houses that are expensive on a Friday. And then over the weekend, he has a family, his mother died, his uncle died, his
Mhm.
something happens. He needs the earnest money back. And several of the companies in Seattle had written him back his earnest money check before they saw if his check cleared.
Oh my gosh.
And he had collected $30,000. Now, this was back in 1980. He had
Right.
he had conned people out of $30,000 in Seattle while he's on parole. I guess he probably went back to prison.
Mhm.
And I thought, wow, I kind of thought he was not real, but then there was a part of
Mm.
me that wanted to believe him. Like
There was a
I didn't want to believe he was a drummer.
right.
It was his birthday. I mean, that as the night rolled on, I stopped believing him. But in the
Mhm.
beginning, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
you would say, I mean, I called him at work. He was there. Yeah,
Right.
he was dating somebody who was a secretary there, and he just hung out a lot. And if
Oh
he
boy.
got a call, and she'd just go, the call's for you, honey. But wow,
Wow.
if we want to believe it.
If we want to believe something, it is very interesting. So I've actually got 4 different movies in my head for this very occasion.
Okay, I'm ready to write them down.
So the first one, Catch Me If You Can, 2000s, Leonardo DiCaprio, based on the real life story of Frank Abagnale Jr.
I
He
loved
was
that movie.
He
I
was
love
a real life con artist who actually wound up working for the FBI. We spent all those years hunting him down. So many of the security measures we have, how we secure checks and everything, was because he taught us how to block it.
it.
So, and it's very interesting, and how what I interesting about that movie is it shows how his father was a con man in his own way. And so he learned and he idolized his dad, and just how he went from thing to thing to thing. I mean, at one point he convinced people he was a lawyer, he was a doctor, he was a pilot. Like, it was all about people believe what they want to believe. You see a guy in a pilot outfit with a bunch of stewardesses, you want to believe he's a pilot. But the best line of why we believe we want to believe, there was this movie, and I want to say it was House of Games with Joe Montana. At first I was thinking House of Cards, but I think that's the TV series. I want to say it's House of Games. And it's very interesting because it's really about this con man. And it starts with this woman. She plays a psychiatrist. It's a very good movie. Twists and turns. I don't want to spoil it for you. I want to say probably 90s, so like the years just consolidate. But it was very interesting. So the premise was she plays a psychiatrist. Her patient is deeply in debt, in gambling debt or whatever. And she breaks the rule that we never should. She gets overly invested. And she actually wants to see these people he's supposedly in debt with. And she actually meets up with this con man. And she's drawn to them. She's drawn to their world, She has this very predictable state life, and she's very drawn to this guy. And so he kind of lets her in on the tricks of the trade. And one of the things he tells her is, it's not about, the true con is not about you giving me your trust. It's I'm giving you the illusion that I'm giving you my trust.
Wow.
Yeah. So he does a thing with this guy, and if you look at like the cons, it's kind of what they're doing. Oh my goodness, I need you to hold on to this money for me, or whatever it is. That you're giving the illusion that you're giving somebody your trust, so that they're more likely to trust you.
Right.
And then they've got you in for the con. So that's how a lot of con people will work. They'll be like, they'll find a way to make it appear like they're giving you their trust, but they're not. They're setting you up so that you are now more susceptible to that. Letting you in on a secret, maybe, or being vulnerable as a way to facilitate the con.
When I first met this man that conned my friend, he and she came over for dinner. He brought a gift for my boyfriend, like a toy drone that you could fly around in your house. And he's like, I got one for myself too. And they talked about going to Paris, and they were engaged. And he reached over and did this to her hair because she wore a wig. And he's like, honey, like he adjusted her hair. And she's like, oh, she was so aflutter. And she was a very powerful businesswoman. And after he left, I said, he's kind of a weird guy. Like, what do you think? And we were a little bit drunk, and we were sitting around laughing really hard. And we said, okay, what do you think his real deal is? And we decided he was either a serial killer, a con man, or a child trafficker. And at the time that we were sitting around drunk, joking about like what's wrong with him, we were just laughing and laughing and going, yeah, he's one of those three things. He's not what he says he is. And it turns out, he may be a serial killer or a child trafficker, but he was a con man.
He was a con man.
And we could see it, but she didn't see it for another year.
So what, as we're having to teach people how to decipher real, what was the clue for you that there was something off about this guy?
The clue for me was who was uh, very macho, very proud of himself. And then underneath it,
Mm,
I could sense that he wasn't, there was something that was incongruent. It wasn't something I could explain.
there's the
And for my boyfriend, he said he asked him a bunch of questions about the business he was in. And in specifically, I think he was saying he was future trading oil in
mm,
Russia or something. There was some kind of elaborate financial thing that
interesting.
I wasn't interested in knowing about, but he said all of the wrong answers.
Oh,
He asked him
so
these questions and he got all the wrong answers and he realized the guy was bullshitting him and he didn't know what he was talking about.
so if you want to possibly decipher truth, maybe you need to ask more questions to not take something at face value, but ask more questions.
But if you're with a real con man, you can ask a lot of questions and they'll have some answers and then they'll distract you and ask you
They'll
questions.
distract you from that. And that's what you got to look for too. When you're trying to find the truth, is it being dodged?
Yeah.
Are they feeding into what you want to hear? Are they dodging the very questions that you're asking?
This makes me feel very skeptical that anyone's going to tell me the truth. I don't want to live that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is hard. And how many movies do they have where people are lied to or conned? Because it's a very real thing. I mean, Lifetime TV has made that a whole cottage industry where the
Sure.
person seemed to be one thing and then it turns out they weren't. And they either were a killer, trafficker, or con man, and it's a woman Jeopardy of the week. Uh, so there is a whole cottage industry with it. And the other movies I was thinking of,
Yes,
because
tell me.
each movie kind of deals in a different way. Like I loved Catch Me If You Can because that totally dealt with the life of this guy and how he came to be who he was and his whole thing and process. And then, like I said, I thought House of Games was really interesting because the twists and turns, but it also showed and that line it isn't so much I'm getting your trust, I'm giving you my trust. I'm like, whoa. And you see in the movie, I don't want to spoil it, you see in the movie how that line comes back.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when that trust is rescinded? It's
Ooh.
very interesting. Yeah, good movie. Real twist that you didn't see coming. And it leaves you kind of a little, whoa. So very interesting. And then the other one I was thinking of, it's an old movie from the 1960s starring Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. I have seen it for free on YouTube. Many people are playing it. Amazon, you can find it anywhere. Many people have probably already seen it, but it's this combination romantic comedy, mystery, caper thing. And Audrey Hepburn plays this woman named Virginia Lambert. And the movie starts where you see this guy being thrown off a train and it looks like he's dead. And then you then cut to Audrey Hepburn and she's talking to her best friend and she's thinking about divorcing her husband. And she's like, why do you want to divorce him? And she's like, it's the lies. It's the lies. I feel like he's not telling me the truth. He's not telling me everything about him is a lie, secrets and lies, and she just can't take it anymore. So, slight spoiler, um, she finds out her husband is well, first she'd been away, and then she goes back to their apartment. The whole apartment is cleared out. All the furniture, everything, all gone. And she she's contacted by the police who tell her husband is dead. He was the man from the train. And who she thought he was not who he was. at all.
What's the name of that
And
movie?
Charade, Audrey
Okay.
Hepburn, Cary Grant, 1960s. I've seen it for free on YouTube. You can get it on Amazon. I've seen it everywhere. So it's the whole premise. And what's really interesting, the whole idea is she spends me trying to figure out what's real, what's not, who's lying to her, who isn't. And then the person you think is telling her the truth or is probably the one honest person isn't. And then the one you think is lying is, I mean, it has some interesting twists. It's very funny. It's got comedy. You know, there's a funeral scene where, you know, these three guys who had known her husband, let's just say that's part of the whole mystery. So it's very funny because they're literally trying to check to see if he's still alive. Like one guy, so her friend is like sitting with her at this thing, and so these men come in, and she's like, so her friend is like saying, who are these men? And she's like, don't ask me, I'm only the widow, you know. If, you know, she's like, up until today, the only thing I knew about Charles was his name, and apparently I didn't even know that. And so, you know, but it's the funeral scene is crazy because one guy, like, you know, tries to stab him with a hat pin to see if he's really dead. The other guy, like, checks a mirror, like, you know, I mean, so it's this twisty thing, and she's trying to figure out what's real, what's not, who's lying to her, who isn't. It's funny. It's a bit of a mystery. Cary Grant is great in it. Walter Matthau plays in it as well. Very good movie. So that's one thing I was thinking of. And then there's another movie, I want to say 1990s, with Andy. It has two titles. You will either find it under Ruby Cairo, which was the title it went to the movies under, but then it also had the alternate title of Deception. So sometimes you'll see it either as Deception or Ruby Cairo. Andy McDowell, a young Liam Neeson before he became the action star. Vigo, oh, how do you say his last name? I'm blanking on his last name. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yes. So he's really young in this, before he became a big star. And the premise is, so she's married to this guy, and then he dies in a plane crash. Or did he?
Mm.
And then this becomes a whole big thing.
Wow. Okay, we're going to have to do another podcast and talk about this, the illusion that we see.
Yes.
That's negative, that's false.
Right.
Because
Right.
this whole conversation has gone kind of to the dark side. We got con men, we got politicians and people in controlling what we think. We got advertisers controlling what we think. We've got AI doing such deep fakes that they look real, and movies where people are being conned. And then back to the beginning where we talked about an illusionist, a mentalist,
Right.
who's controlling what we think so much that we think we're choosing to do a particular thing or not. And that's how the magic trick works.
Exactly.
Wow. Another fascinating conversation. Thank you for your time and attention today, and the 4 great movies. I can't wait to go find them and watch them and think about what's real. Also in the show notes, I'll put a link to the Tim Ferris podcast with
Yes.
Beautiful Man, and also the Is It Bullshit or Not class at the UW.
Yes. Very cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
Before we talk again.
Yes. Thank you so much.